time is the same.
Here earlier, come on. No, I'm joking. There you go.
I'll have to do here then.
I would like to call the regular scheduled meeting for the Village of Tinley Park Plan Commission to order.
Oh,
Please
yeah.
stand for the Pledge of
Call Manny
Allegiance.
first.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gerald, please take roll call.
Commissioner Manny. Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Merrick. Commissioner Sepisi.
Yes, here.
Commissioner Gaskell.
Present.
Commissioner West.
Present.
Commissioner Gray.
Present.
Okay, and Acting Chair Gatto.
Present. A quorum is present. We will now move on to communications. Staff, are there any communications?
Just that our chairperson Gray is joining us remotely due to work obligations. He can't function as the chair remotely, but he can participate in the meeting as long as there's a physical quorum. So he's on the phone here, as you heard him check in. And then Angela Gatto, Commissioner Gatto, is going to become acting chair today. That's all I have.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 19th, 2023 Plan Commission meeting?
I'll motion.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner West, seconded by Commissioner Sepisi. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. Item 1 on the agenda is a public hearing to consider recommending that the village board grant West Point Builders, Inc., on behalf of Tinley Park Main Street LLC, a special use, final plat of subdivision, plat of vacation, rezoning, and variations for the mixed-use development, West Point at Harmony Square. A text amendment to the zoning ordinance is also proposed to facilitate the development by relocating a segment of the street-level commercial required designation in the Legacy Downtown Code Regulation Plan. The project includes a 5-story mixed-use building on North Street with commercial space on the first floor and 63 residential units located above. Additionally, development includes 63 townhome units at the former site of Central Middle School. Site plan and final plat approval are also being considered at the meeting. May I have a motion to continue the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Sepisi, seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Before we proceed, I would like to note that I have received notification of the public notice as being published in the local paper as required by state law. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter will be sworn in before they speak, but after the staff's presentation. Staff, could you please proceed with your presentation at this time?
Sure. I just wanted to note here today, there's been 2 rounds of, or really 2 full meetings of public comment, close to 5 hours of public comment on this. The Plan Commission's last direction was just requesting that KLOA be present, provide an overview of their traffic statement. We did reach out to all the commissioners. We didn't have any specific questions for them to address beforehand, so they are here to provide a little bit of a summary. I also just want to note that if there is further discussion on transportation or anything else the commission wants to discuss, it'd be extremely helpful if we could know what we're discussing, what request it relates to. And then if you can kind of help, because it needs to relate to the specific standards. That's what you guys are voting on in terms of recommendations. We did provide that memo to kind of help you guys realize what you're voting on, what the standards are, what the requests are, kind of help you out with that. So if you could let us know if there's going to be discussion, that's perfectly fine, but just kind of help us know what request
Exactly.
it's related to.
Okay.
And then again, specific standards related to those. We do have the draft standards that we'll be going through on these requests as well. If those are in the positive, that's typically what we do for every request. So if you're voting no, it helps us, again, let us know what evidence, the reason kind of why you're voting different than what the drafted standards are. So that way we can help relay that to the board, who's got to make the ultimate decision on this from your guys' recommendation. Lastly, the variations, so there's 9 different variations on there. We also addressed that with all the commissioners, that any of those could be voted on differently. We don't want to have 9 different motions though, so they are summed up in one, but if any commissioner feels like they would vote one different than the rest of them, you can always pull one out. Just let us know and we can help you do that, but I didn't hear anything from the commissioners when we reached out to you. So on that note, I'm not going to go through the presentation for really what would be a 4th time of this. The previous 2 meetings, we went into pretty strong detail of what the project is, what the site plan is, the architecture in the request. So there's a mixed-use building and then 63 unit residential mixed-use building with commercial on the 1st floor, and then 60 townhome units. Specifically in this request are the zoning text amendments. We have, which is essentially moving the required commercial from North Street over to the public facing side. This was really a request from village staff to the petitioner to really front that plaza with commercial, activate the public plaza that's being proposed for the Harmony Square Plaza. The rezoning, which is really just rezoning the right-of-way portion that's being included with North Street to be zoned downtown core, since that's the adjacent zoning district there. The special use, which is allowing accessory residential uses. So the special use is just to allow those residential amenities on the 1st floor of the mixed-use building. If this wasn't granted, those amenities would have to be elsewhere in the building. And that would have to be commercial space for the code requirements. And then the 9 variations, which again, we kind of went over in the last 3 meetings, so I'm not going to address each one again. But there's the 9 variations that are there as well. I will leave it at that for this one. Again, we do have KLOA. They can give a little bit of a summary
Okay.
on the traffic report if that's what the Planning Commission would like.
Okay.
Good evening. My name's Michael Worthman. I'm a principal with the firm of Koenig, Lindgren, O'Hara, Boone, Inc. We were retained by the village to perform a traffic statement for the proposed residential development. As you've heard, it's going to consist of 60 townhomes, 63 apartments, just over 4,000 square feet of retail commercial space. As we all know, given the proximity of the site to the metro station, the Pace route along Oak Park Avenue, as well as in the downtown area, the site, the development qualifies or is a transit-oriented development, or a TOD, which is significant, as we'll talk about in a little bit. The roadway system serving the site, as you can see here, they're all local 2-lane roads, low-volume roads, based on IDOT ADTs. All of these roads are operating at 20 to 25% of their capacity. Very low-volume roads, more than sufficient capacity to accommodate the additional traffic that will be generated by the development. As it pertains to the volume of traffic that will be generated, it will be reduced for a couple reasons. The first being the fact that it is a TOD. Census data shows that 10 to 15% of the area residents actually commute to work other than the automobile. They're using the Metro, the Pace, working from home, those sort of things. The other interesting aspect is that 34 of the units within the apartment building are studio and 1-bedroom. Studios and 1-bedrooms, typically smaller, typically generate less traffic, less of a parking demand. So all of this helps to reduce the volume of traffic that will be generated by the development. As we all know, 173rd Street will be vacated, as part of this development. Will be vacated between 67th Avenue and 67th Court. To minimize some of that impact, a new road is to be developed between the site and the plaza. It'll be a one-way southwest or southeastbound road, The impact of the vacation will be pretty minimal for a number of reasons. We're only vacating one block of the street. 173rd carries a pretty low volume of traffic. According to IDOT, it had a daily volume of only 325 vehicles, so it's not a significant volume of traffic on it by any means. In addition, there are several convenient alternative routes to this one section of 173rd Street. You pretty much have a grid system here. You got 172nd Street to the north. You have the new road to the east. You also have Oak Park Avenue. So the 173rd vacation should have a minimal impact. It will add a little bit of circulation in the area, but it won't be significant at all. Access to the townhomes is going to be provided via 3 access drives on 167th Avenue, 1 on 167th Court, and 1 on 172nd Street. Access onto the apartment building will be provided via 3 drives on 67th Avenue. All of the drives will provide 1 inbound lane, 1 outbound lane, with the outbound lane under stop sign control. The drives, the location of them will have a minimal impact on the roadway system. It will help to distribute that traffic along the roadway system. Also helping to minimize the impact is the number of different routes that you have into the site that will disperse that traffic even a little more. That's basically my couple-minute presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay. Any of the commissioners have questions? I can start with
No.
nothing.
No.
We're on the side. Commissioner West?
Nothing beyond what's been presented, thank you.
Okay.
I have one small question. The drawing that's up on the screen, the parking spaces actually should be oriented the other way, shouldn't they, for a southeastbound?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. Doesn't-
And I may be wrong. I may have misrepresented. Is that going to be one way?
That will actually provide two-way traffic. 67-quarter extension.
Yeah, this was just conceptual when they were doing the roadway, so that's not actually
His
part of the
presentation was it
proposal.
was one way, but it's actually two-way.
Yeah, it'll actually be
It's
2
actually two-way?
Could you point it out on the map where the parking is wrong?
This right here will be two-way. Is that correct?
What street is that?
It's a 67th Court, it's the extension from 67th Court that will connect down to North Street.
So that being two-way will even further minimize the impact. And sorry, I misled anyone on that.
Can I swear you in too? I didn't swear you in. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Do you swear and affirm that the evidence that you are about to give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So now you have to go over to that whole thing.
Ditto.
You kind of jumped right
There you
in, so
go.
I just wanted to cover that.
So they should be this.
Ask if Gray has any
Just
questions.
straight, because it's going to be.
Commissioner Gray? Yeah, Commissioner Gray, do you have any questions?
Yes. No, I just had a comment, Commissioner Gatto. I just want to say, Michael, thanks for coming out and clarifying. The IDOT, the daily volume for 325 vehicles per day. I know I'm two of those vehicles back and forth. So, and as you mentioned, you can go to 172nd Street or that connector or even North Street. So there's other outlets. But I do appreciate your time here today to clarify these things. As you mentioned, the volume of capacity generated, and I concur with those results of your presentation. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray. Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other comments or concerns from the commission? No? Okay. I don't have anything to add either. His presentation was great. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to testify to the materials presented to today's hearing? Okay, ma'am. You can come up and I can swear you in.
And it would just be for the.
It'll just be
transfer.
for what was presented today.
Seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've been over everything else in the past.
Except I couldn't be here because my son had a heart attack, so sorry. Okay, do you swear me in?
Yep. Do you swear what you're about to testify is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And what was your name, ma'am?
Terry Murphy.
Terry Murphy. Okay, thank you, Terry. Go ahead, you can proceed.
Okay, the first thing I want to say is, we are not the enemy. These people here are not your enemy. We only want, we're your neighbors, we're your Tinley Park residents. We only want full disclosure, and we want the truth. The density you're proposing in this project is 28.5 units per Jason, okay? Why is that density allowed when you did projects in Caledonia Meadows, Caledonia, Chestnut Ridge, Chestnut Meadows, which were townhomes, and they only had 6 per acre? This is 4 times the density. 4 times the density.
Ma'am, could you please stick to the topic of the traffic that there's?
Well, I disagree with his traffic report. Have you ever been in that field when there's a parade or when there's a special event? The whole thing is full with traffic. You're saying 67th Court is going to be 2 lanes? There is not parking on either side of that street right now. Is that street going to be widened? There's no parking on that street, on either side, right now, today. You can't get 2 cars. And I'd like to know, with this traffic report, what about the fire trucks? How's their ingress or egress? What's going on with that? Can they do a turnaround on one of those streets? Because I know in Amber Meadows, you made them put a second exit into that subdivision so that so it would comply with fire department regulations.
Yeah,
What about-
There's a turning template that has.
Where?
required.
Where is it? Where's the turning?
It was submitted with the original
Well,
proposal.
show us. We want to know.
Yeah, I don't have it.
You
here,
don't have it with you, right? Okay.
But the fire department has reviewed it, and there is a fire truck
Okay.
circulation template.
And Tinley Park does the public works here, right? When are we going to see their plan for the public works that's going in there? Where are we going to
For
see that
infra-
plan?
For infrastructure improvements?
Yes,
that
the
doesn't-
infrastructure.
That doesn't come before a public hearing. That's
So they just do what they do, and we don't get to know?
I
Is
mean,
that the truth?
like roadways, utilities.
Yeah, they just do what they do, and we don't get to know.
It
What is
goes
there to
before the
know?
board.
What is there to know? We'd like to see what's going to go on. You're dropping this subdivision into an existing neighborhood. Okay, I was told, in response to questions that I sent out, that this was similar to other high-rise condominiums in Tinley Park. No, it is not. There isn't one high-rise condominium subdivision that's been dropped into an existing neighborhood with 28.5% density.
Excuse me, that has nothing to do with the infrastructure that you mentioned.
Well, I'm trying to
Ma'am.
bring up a point about the density.
Ma'am,
We're
I'm
still
sorry.
all stuck on density. You guys have moved on.
May I?
Go ahead, Commissioner West.
Oh,
Go ahead.
ma'am, I'm Kayla West. I live over behind kind of the old Bettenhausen dealership. I've lived here for between 5 and 6 years. I really hope your son is doing well.
Thank you.
Yeah, your question is about the infrastructure in place to support.
I have
this
I have a
different-
lot of questions.
Of course, your first question was about the density of.
Yes, the density. That's
And the
issue
infrastructure
here.
that's gonna be in place to support that. Does the public works kind of angle of it?
Well, what part of the TIF
impact-
money is going for the infrastructure? What percentage of the TIF, the 8 million plus?
Just for the record, we should be sticking to the
Okay.
traffic study.
Well, traffic report.
Okay.
They're going to fix the roads, right? What part of the 8 million plus TIF money is going to be allocated to infrastructure and traffic?
I personally don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, nobody ever
I'm-
has any answers.
Of course, yeah. I'm hearing what you're saying about the traffic during a parade or something like that. My understanding, at least from the presentations that have been given over the last few meetings, is that the folks that will hopefully be moving into this place, there's gonna be ample
Where's their parking? Where's the guest parking? Are you going to do zone parking for the residents so that they can always have a parking spot in front of their home?
That's my understanding.
They're going to be zone parking. You're going to give stickers like the city of Chicago does for the residents that live there, so they, when all these people have their guests, because, you know, maybe it's only a one-bedroom, but maybe they have 10 guests that come over.
Can staff answer that question?
Yeah.
None of it is part of this proposal here,
And-
so.
okay, yeah.
again,
Okay,
it is-
sorry,
it
then
is
I
public
misunderstood her.
roads, It's gonna be the.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood the
Yeah,
question.
it's not really part of their proposal on this.
Okay.
They have 4-to-1 parking on the townhome portion of this, and then it's different from the mixed-use portion.
And where is that parking?
There's 2 in the garages and then 2 spaces.
So the
behind
townhomes have garages that they'll park in, so it'll look like what's at 171st and 94th Avenue.
They're-
Yeah,
it's a much
they have-
different product than that, but there's 2 interior spaces and then 2 parking spaces behind each unit. So there's 4 total for each unit.
Okay, and they're not going to clog up the streets and park in front of everybody's houses?
Well,
so
you
that
can't park on the
park.
streets
It's
overnight
still
until
no
we park as
overnight
it is.
parking.
Yeah, but you can park during the day.
Right,
Yeah,
but that's just like my block. People can come and park on my block all day long.
yeah.
I can't say
But not if
anything.
everybody else is parking in front of your house.
Well, they do it every day where I live, so, I mean, I can't say anything. There's apartments right across from me that they park in front of my place every day. So, I mean,
So how about let's do some zone parking for the residents?
well, I mean, that's a good option. We can, you know,
Yeah, that they always get a parking spot. They have 2 spots in front of their house. You know, something like that, like they do in Chicago. And I know this is going to set the world on fire, but I'd like to know, the developer, he owns the land, there are no conditions attached that he gets this zoning change to the purchase of that land? He owns the land, there's no, it's not a offer to purchase with conditions that he buys it if the zoning goes through?
I
Question?
don't think that's a answer for the commissioners to answer. I don't,
Well, who would answer that question?
I would,
Is the developer here? Could he answer the question?
This is just a public hearing
Yes,
on their zoning request. It's not.
Okay. Getting used,
About-
yeah, yeah. You know, I'd like you guys to tell us why you believe this is such a viable and beneficial plan for that village, that neighborhood. I don't see that extreme density as, I think it's going to affect property values, because we know they're for rent. We know they're going to be subsidized and they're for rent. So that's going to affect property values, and I don't know why you're shaking your head no, because it will.
The
Renters have no skin in the game.
The
They come
commissioners-
and they go at will, they don't pay property taxes, they have no skin in the game. They're transient, and it will affect the property values of the people that own those homes because, okay, people don't want to live in rental areas. Not a planned, these people have
ma'am,
mortgages.
we cannot,
And
that is a legal thing. You
What's
cannot.
legal
we
about
can't-
it?
We can't, there's a state law that requires us not to be able to say if somebody can rent or own a piece of property.
What state law is that?
It's-
It's not fair
it's a
housing.
law.
may I speak? May I speak?
Fair housing doesn't say you
Okay.
can't disclose rental or
Okay,
sale.
there are certain standards that have been set by the law and set by ordinance by your board members, and there are guidelines and standards. Your commissioners must abide by those standards.
What are the standards?
The standards are outlined in your zoning ordinance.
Well, like, you
They-
tell us, because we don't know how to find all this.
Okay.
Let us know what those
Okay.
standards are.
Okay, and I'm sure maybe staff can, or I believe all the packets are online, correct?
Yeah,
So
they've
it's,
been in every single packet.
so if you go online, there will be a packet that all.
I
the-
don't understand it. I'm not a lawyer. I'd
I-
like
this
you
isn't-
to explain it to us.
I understand.
Tell us
Can you
what
let,
this
can you let me
means.
finish, please? There are packets. There's public notice. Everything that the commissioners are looking at and considered is available online on the Tinley Park website. That contains the standards that they must look at. There are very strict standards they can look at so that they cannot treat this developer any different than any other developer, and they can't treat projects any different based on irrelevant standards. So while you want them to tell you why they think this is a good project, that is not their job. Their job is to evaluate the projects based on the standards that have been set in the zoning ordinance. Otherwise, if they deter, or if they depart from those standards, you subject the village to liability. These standards are set so that every petitioner is treated equally and fairly and that there are equitable results. I understand that there are emotions and that as a resident, but they are limited in what they can consider, and they have to look at the evidence that was presented and the package that was presented, and they need to make sure that it stands up to the Tinley Park standards. And that is what they are
With all
looking
due
at.
respect, 28.5% density is not anywhere else in the village. Amber Meadows, Caledonia Meadows, Chestnut and Chestnut Ridge are 6 per acre.
Right. I also
Why
want-
is this, would he do this development if it wasn't 28?
I also want to point out, though, that this is also, they are reviewing it based on their standards, and they will vote and give a recommendation to the board, but ultimately, the board will also vote on it. But the board also will look at the same standards.
Can I?
And today is, I'm sorry, and today, the question that was raised was related to the traffic, and so that's why we need to stay on the issue of the traffic study and whether or not you have any questions for the gentleman who just testified before you related to his testimony.
Well, he can't answer if the street will be widened. You're not going to let us know if 67th Court is going to be widened, because you can't park on it now. So if it stays the same size, how are you going to have two-way traffic and park?
It's Terry, right?
Yes.
Okay. Again, I'm Kayla. I want to acknowledge that you opened your statement with that you are not the enemy.
We're not the enemy.
I 1,000%, dumb as
We
that
have
sounds,
concerns.
we agree
We're
with you.
worried.
I live here too. My daughter will be 2 in March. I'm thrilled at the prospect of raising her here. My husband and I chose Tinley specifically because it's very community-minded, it's very family-minded. There's just a lot of esprit de corps. There's a lot of great things happening. And I suspect that's how you ended up in Tinley as well. So I want to acknowledge that we're all on the same side. It's not us against you, it's all of us against the question, right? And I think that's valuable to acknowledge. Your questions seem to be about the specific number, about
the density.
Density?
Yeah, it's the density.
And this might be a question for staff, what's the density on the other side of the railroad tracks with the boulevard? Similarly high?
But that's-
We don't have the
Cool.
exact numbers.
But,
because
okay.
It is
But
a-
And I would say-
The one thing I was gonna bring up was, so until about 7 years ago, I was a renter. I worked for the federal government. I was on the road a lot.
But that, you
I'm a
might be
universal
different
blood
than
donor,
most
so I
renters
gave
that I see.
Every 8 weeks as I was able
Yeah.
to. I registered to vote on my 18th birthday.
Uh-huh.
Renter doesn't necessarily mean
They have the
citizen.
option to move at will. Homeowners with mortgages do not, especially now with interest
Sure.
rates at 8%.
Well, that's
No
why
one's moving.
a lot of people aren't buying.
But
Okay.
I'm just, person to person, I'm encouraging you to broaden your view of this a little bit. Renter
You know,
doesn't necessarily mean
I
bad community member.
with all due respect, and I appreciate what you said, with all due respect, 28% density is extreme
Prior
compared.
to researching
Now,
this,
you've
did
got
you
this.
know what that density was? Did that mean anything to you prior to researching this? It seems like a number you're eager to be mad about, and again, person to
28%,
person.
when everything else, okay, the more affluent side of Tinley Park is 6 per acre.
Could we stick to the traffic?
Sure.
Stop, thank you.
Because you won't address,
Perfect.
the concerns. So it's,
No, we're not,
They're-
ma'am,
they're-
we're not
and
trying
I beg
dodge
to
this. We're trying
differ.
keep it
I
legal.
really, with all due respect, telling us that it's not your job to
Hold on
tell
one
us
second,
certain
Garrett.
things is not right.
Sure, go ahead, Garrett.
I'm gonna ask Terry, have you ever heard of the legacy code of Tinley Park?
No. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a resident. I'm just a nobody. I'm an old-time grandmother.
No, this has nothing to do with, you don't have to have a legal degree. You don't have to have a legal degree. All you have to do is go to Tinley Park website. This has been around for as long as I can remember. You can find a 2011 legacy code online and you can read. You're trying to compare apples to oranges when you compare the density of this proposed project to other condominiums or what have you. if you read the legacy code, it will say that this downtown core district in Tinley Park, which is different than the other districts, it consists of the highest density and height of buildings with a great variety of uses. It'll say that verbatim. The whole idea for the downtown core is to have a denser, a higher density. Thus, comparing it to other places, that's irrelevant. And it's also irrelevant from the fact that the petitioner is not asking for a variation of density. That has no bearing in this location, this downtown core location at all. They're not asking for a higher density or a lower density. That's not a requirement. So comparing it and saying people don't want to answer, I understand staff and the rest of the commission concern to refocus and get back on topic. But if you look at some of the other previous public hearings, you can go online on YouTube and watch them. Some of your questions that you have already been answered. So, but with that said, the density, the downtown core district is specifically for denser buildings. And I'm just, you can, after this meeting, please go on TinleyPark.org and look under legacy code and you can read it. This is not new. It's something that's been in our community for a long time.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. You're saying that that was instituted in 2011? Is that when it came out? How old are these houses that surround this tract of land? Were they there long before the density, the legacy law came into place? They were already up and occupied for maybe 50 years before you did the legacy law. So did you tell each and every one of these homeowners that that was going to happen before you passed the legacy thing? Because those houses are 50 and 60 years old, maybe even older than that. So 2011, you passed the legacy law. Did everybody get advised about a
ma'am,
legacy law?
My question there would be, does that necessarily entitle them to no additional development around them?
Oh, really?
No, I'm asking.
The school was there for how many years? Is that when the school got,
Mute his laptop.
I'm sorry. there's
is that
a
when
lot
the
of
school got demolished in 2011? And then that's when
I'm
you
sorry,
passed
ma'am,
it?
can everyone stop talking just for a second? So the record won't be able to record all this? Just, we're all talking over each other.
Garrett, can you mute? Thank you.
So in 2011, is that when the school got demolished?
I don't know. Do we have that answer?
Okay, so you
think it
passed
was
this legacy in 2011. Existing homeowners lived in all of those units, and they're 50 or 60 or even 100 years old. Did they get advised that you were doing this?
But again, my question is, does the age of the house necessarily entitle the homeowner to no additional
Yes,
development
it
beyond
does.
the property lines?
Have you ever sold a property? You have full disclosure?
I have. So
You have.
I grew
So you
up
know
on
about full
I grew up on an
disclosure.
80-acre farm in Indiana, and the only time we ran out of parking is when my parents had a church social with beer can chicken, and it was A+, let me tell you. Everybody came, sometimes we ran out of parking.
Okay,
If you live this close.
Okay, we really need to get back
Yes.
to
Doesn't it?
point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
we're really getting way
But
out
again,
here.
your
But the-
property lines,
in the legacy code, if it's part of the zoning code,
2011.
there would have been public hearings, just like there was for this. Okay?
Yes.
over 20 years ago.
Okay. Well, I think I'm done because you obviously feel that this is a huge benefit. But I'd like to ask the developer one last question. Would he do the development if the density was brought down to like, say, 20 per acre or 18 per acre, per units per acre? He won't, because the reason he's going to make his money is he paid a lot for the land. 2x4 costs the same here as it costs over there. He's counting on the density to make his profit. That's the problem. It's the density. I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you. No. Nope. Thank you. Hi, sir.
Good evening.
What's your name?
David Brigman.
Hi, David. Do you swear and affirm that the evidence that you're about to give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can proceed.
Regarding the traffic study, I was just curious if the consultants gave any consideration to the apartment building that has 3 exits to it, very close together, less than 150 feet between the 3 exits, and that they all come together at pretty much one point. And it also has a exit almost directly across from my driveway. So a high concentration of vehicles leaving that apartment building. You know, was there any traffic consideration or thought or input or analysis to that specific area?
You can address it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you guys could address questions to
Okay.
the chair, and
Or-
she can,
Okay.
the commission and the chair can always
Yeah, I
redirect
can-
to staff or
Okay.
the petitioner, that's
Do you,
helpful.
do you want me to wait until the end? Or should I do it
It's
question by
up to
question?
you, it's usually easier to ask all the questions and then have them.
Okay,
come answer
okay.
them.
All right. Well, then on the second question would be, you mentioned that it was analyzed using a transit-oriented development. I'd be curious as to the impact of that was a regular development as opposed to transit-oriented, and the impact to the use on the streets surrounding that area. Third question would be, you had mentioned, I think, 25% capacity on those streets. What capacity would they be at with the development? And was any consideration given to the fact that Harmony Square is going to increase that capacity as well? And was that part of the traffic study?
Okay.
Next question would be, I just want to confirm it, I read it and I didn't see it, any parking analysis or study done in conjunction with the traffic study?
Okay.
I think that's the
All right.
4 things I had.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Michael, do you want to address those questions?
The driveways, given the low volume, low speed on 67th Avenue, and the lower volume of traffic that will be coming in and out of the drives, we don't see an issue with the proximity of it. You got driveways spaced appropriately. I need my glasses. The TOD, all we did was take a 10% reduction on the traffic that would be generated. If you throw that back in, it's not going to change the results of the analysis. All of these are very low-volume streets. You had a school here at one time that generated more traffic at times than this development will during the peak hours. Like we said, the capacity, very low, operating at 20-25% of the road. I did not look what the daily volume of this development would be, but I don't see it being more than a couple percent. There was an issue or a comment that during certain special events, it's difficult to get around. We understand that. These are special events. It's a downtown area. We expect it to be crowded at certain times on certain events. What we look at is the everyday event, the normal, typical event. When you have special events, streets are closed, police are out there, you make accommodations for those special events. From a parking standpoint, we were not asked to look at parking. Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's meeting the zoning code, or?
Correct, there's no requests that were relevant to parking requirements, so parking was not part of the request.
There's no plan to study the parking?
Overall, as a downtown, that would be something like the board could take on, but for this development and what's before us here today, it meets the requirements, so there wasn't a study for this development. But overall, I think
Who can I ask then at the village if they're going to be planning a parking study?
I can look into it, and it's something separately, like if the board
We
could
don't need
talk
to talk
about.
about it tonight, I just want to know who to ask.
Yeah, I can get back to you with it. Do you have my information?
I do not. Well, thank you. I'm not too sure if that's helpful. I do have quite a bit of concerns, during the high point of my day when I'm leaving my driveway, single-car garage backing out, trying to watch out for, 60 apartment units leaving their home, place of living at the same time.
You really think that could happen? You really think that that's gonna happen?
Say it's half.
Pardon me?
Say it's half the people.
Well, even 30 cars at one time, that's a lot to ask, that's a lot to consider.
It
is a lot.
I mean,
No, I mean, it's a lot to-
typically, I would imagine the high, use point in the day, early morning, and the high point in the evening is people coming and going from work. Is that typically what?
So what kind of time window is that?
So, yeah, the time window,
Half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour?
60 units, half of them leaving within the time period. I'm trying to back out of my driveway. Every one of those apartment units exits almost directly into my yard.
Do you think every single one of those is a car commuter leaving at exactly the same time?
That's what the study's for. And I just said my concern.
Yeah,
I didn't-
no, and thank you for bringing it to us. I do think that has been
If you look at
addressed
the
in this.
whole development, you may have 40 vehicles leaving at one time. That's all 120 units. So you may have 20 coming out of the apartments. That's one every 3 minutes. It's not a whole lot of traffic in the realm of traffic engineering and capacity and so forth. It's typical of what you find at many locations. So just wanted to put the
Okay.
numbers in there for you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Michael.
I'm not disputing the numbers. I just know I'm trying to back out of my driveway during rush hour when the trains come and go, and it ain't easy. And adding this to it will make it worse. So I appreciate the study, but in real life, I try to back out of my driveway when the train's coming out and people are flying out of the parking lot. It's near disaster, as it is today. And now I've gotten through my questions. I just have, a couple opinions. Bear with me. I know there's been a few planning meetings here, and part of our frustration as a community is that the very first open house was not well advertised. We didn't receive any letters, and it was guided or disguised as a Harmony Square open house. I went to the village in June and said, that's wrong. I'd like to be informed of everything that goes on in the community, the Central Middle School site. I didn't receive one word from the village until I got a letter saying that the plan
Sir,
had
what do
already
you mean
been.
by disguised?
Well, the planning, if you look at the meeting invitation,
Yeah.
it says open house for the Harmony Square development.
What should it have been called?
Harmony Square, up until that point, had been defined as that parcel of land. Up until that point, Central Middle School property had not been part of that discussion at all. The public notices, the press releases, the village website, nothing mentioned Harmony Square being anything other than the development on the Tian's old ice house property.
So your concern is about the nomenclature applying to a larger parcel?
All of a sudden,
Okay.
after that meeting, we found out through the Southtown newspaper that Harmony Square was now Central Middle School as well. I didn't get a letter about the public open house.
Alerts go out to anybody within 250 feet, correct?
30 feet.
Yeah, for any
I'm
of
across the
zoning-
street.
For any of the zoning requests.
Okay.
So I don't know what the open house is he's referring to, because it's not.
Okay,
it
so at
wasn't
some
for
point were
this
you
It was May
notified?
16th,
Never.
open house.
Yeah, so it wasn't for any of the zoning requests that are here today. That is where the notices go out, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you receive those?
I received the one in September, I think
Okay,
it was.
good.
I did receive the one from the planning committee, yes.
Good.
But from the time I asked the village for information, I didn't get anything until that letter. I wanted to be part of the conversation, so I didn't have to stand up in front of you people and ask crazy questions.
Yeah, and we
Oh,
didn't
come on,
have-
you're nice.
We didn't have a formal development submittal until,
I asked for
Until
any,
right before
any
that, then we do
potential,
our staff
I asked for
review.
pictures, I asked for elevations, I asked for anything schematics that would give some insight as to what was being considered.
Did you check the Plan Commission website, the village website,
Yes.
and it wasn't there?
Up until I got the letter, I didn't see anything on the planning website. The
Was there
Harmony
anything
Square is,
show up
the
until that
Harmony
point,
Square is listed
Steph?
as a project on the website, but the Harmony Square on the website is still defined as only the ice house and teens
Okay.
development.
and that's the Harmony Square Plaza. This is a private development. They're using the name Harmony Square.
But you used
because it's
the-
attached to that, but it is.
The first public
West Point,
house still
that's right.
said Harmony Square development. All right,
So-
I didn't catch the plaza versus square.
Yeah,
you know,
and
but-
again, I want to remind everybody, we're supposed to be
But that's,
focusing on the traffic study.
but that's kind of
To
our
you,
frustration.
Harmony Square means the development immediately
It
adjacent
means
to
the
the,
splash pond, the
Okay.
stage.
And so your concern is that it may have caused additional confusion to area residents
Absolutely.
that the name was also applied to
Yes.
the town.
I would have
homes
shown
and
up at that May
apartments.
16th or May
Okay.
26th meeting, whatever
Yeah.
it was. Had I known, it would have been Harmony Square and Central Middle School.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that for me.
So there's, that's where our frustration comes from. And when we ask questions, say that's not our business to answer that question, who do we go to? That's what we want. We don't want to say, you can't ask that question. Okay, I'm allowed to ask a question, maybe not tonight, but direct us to where we need to ask the questions. Frustration, I apologize, we're all frustrated. I live in a house that's 100 years old. I try to take care of it as best I can so it lasts for another 100 years. This development does not help me want to stay there for another 100 years. For a house that's been in my family for over 100 years. It just won't happen.
And again, if I could, it's supposed to be on the traffic
Traffic study.
study, but even if it's on that, we need to know what request
What-
it's being directed towards,
Okay.
because otherwise it's not gonna, it's basically information that doesn't get attached to
To-
any of what you're voting on.
Okay, okay. Okay, ma'am, your name?
Hi, Lisa Lachonico.
Hi, Lisa, do you swear that the evidence you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I just want to echo what David said because I have some of the same frustrations, and I know we're supposed to talk about the traffic, but this is something that's been really bothering me for quite some time. In the spring of this year, I was working from home. I looked out my office window and I saw some people lurking around my home. Of course, I wanted to go out and see what was going on. So I approached a group of individuals from the village of Tinley and also from West Point Development. I asked them, what was going on, what were they doing, and they told me they were there to investigate utility lines and burying them to make the neighborhood look prettier. So, of course, because when I saw their jackets, I already Googled them, knew that they were West Point Development, and I knew that developers don't bury utility lines, utility companies do. So I knew that that was a blatant lie. And lo and behold, about a month later, I read in the Southtown newspaper that there was a public hearing to discuss the transaction between West Point Builders and Tinley Park. That's how we found out about this property going up, both the rental townhomes and the rental apartments too. So we were a little taken aback that we were not notified publicly about that. There was no signage, there was no mailers, there was no phone calls to the 16 residents that live around that field. And so that was really what sparked all of this and the frustration and the lack of transparency. So when, David and some other residents, Terry included, when we feel this frustration, it is because there's a lack of transparency. And I also know that being that you've had other issues with the Department of Justice, I know how they operate, and I know that you are under surveillance, and I know that you have different trainings and different protocols that you need to follow. One of them must have to be that you notify residents when there are public hearings, and we were not notified. And the quote in the Southtown newspaper said, "No residents had any questions." Well, that's because we weren't here, because we didn't know. And so I think that I just wanted to go on record about that and just to know, for you to know just how very frustrated we are that we had no idea that this was going on. And it's really sad. It's not only unethical, but it's egregious.
Ma'am,
And
when
so-
did that first Southtown article come out?
That would have been sometime around April when I saw that.
So between April and now?
So in April, when there was a public hearing, the Southtown reported on it, and the discussion was about the West Point Builders and the transaction between Tinley Park and West Point. That's how we learned about this. That's how I learned about it, and my neighbors learned about
In
it.
a public hearing?
Public hearing, and no residents.
So a matter of public record?
Public hearing.
A public record is a matter of public hearing.
Yeah, and it said in there that no residents had any questions of the transaction.
And at that public hearing, I'm assuming no residents did express concerns?
We didn't know about it.
Okay.
We didn't know about it. So I think that that's kind of like what David has been talking about. I think other people have also tried to express that. But I had, very specific things that occurred up until that point, and know that I personally
It
was.
would have been noticed, right?
Yeah,
Ma'am,
I
we-
can't
yeah.
speak to what, so that wasn't a zoning or development hearing at all.
Okay.
I assume that was a development agreement that went forward, which has very different standards than
Standards
zoning
and what? Because we
requirements.
get noticed every time.
And
We
that
have to
doesn't-
file notice for things.
And that, I believe, just happens at the board level.
But, ma'am,
Okay.
And that's
I,
a different requirement.
just to back
Okay.
it up,
Okay.
I understand your frustration. There are a lot of people that have similar frustrations. What you're saying is that illegal and unethical things happened, and I don't like hearing that as a member of the board because
No,
we
because-
conduct ourselves
And you
to
shouldn't.
the
You
highest
shouldn't want to hear
standards.
that because I already know that I was lied to. Right by village workers and by West Point developers. I was lied to my
About
face.
something that happened in a public hearing.
About what happened in front of my home. They were looking, now it all came together and it all fell into place. They were there looking at the field. They were there looking to see about the development. And I was told they were there to bury power lines. That was a lie.
Oh, well,
But
and that may have
developers
been
don't
the
bury
conversation
power
that was
lines.
happening at the time.
So,
frankly,
well, I
as part of
wanted-
the overall project.
I wanted that to be heard. And I wanted to also echo that I understand about, everyone's talking about density in this urban environment and this urban feel, but in actuality, this is a family community. And so you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. We want density, but yet we want to do all these family-friendly things.
Are those opposed? Are those diametrically opposed
I
concepts?
think they kind of are.
Why?
Because when you put an apartments in the middle of a single family home community, it changes the dynamic of that community.
Is every single home around yours a single family? Are there any townhomes?
Those are
Across
homes.
the train tracks, there's the boulevard.
And the boulevard is lovely, and I love the
Okay,
boulevard,
so how
there's
does it
no
affect your
problem.
standard of living thus
Because we
far?
have 16 single-family homes.
Okay, and again,
So.
Okay.
we're
I'm
raising
sorry.
issues
I'm
that
not
they're not allowed to
Okay,
consider.
So
Please.
I just wanted that to be heard. I wanted you to know that I was definitely lied to, and I know that I was, and I'm really, have been disappointed about that for a long time, so I wanted to get it on public record. There are many other things I could probably say. I am a little bit confused about the 67th court in the street. I will let the meeting proceed, and maybe I'll get some more clarity, but it is a little confusing to me.
Thank you.
And if you have questions about specifics on that, you can reach out to staff. We'll be glad to clarify where it's at.
Okay, is there anybody else that would like to speak?
Hello,
Hi, what's your name, sir?
Jack Coyle.
Hi, Jack. Do you swear that the evidence you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. My question related to the traffic plan. Do I ask you the question?
Yeah, you can ask
Okay.
me, and then we'll have Michael address it once you're
Okay.
done with all your questions.
It seems like the focus has been on the people, the new residents, which makes sense. The question is that the focus has been on three streets, 172nd, 173rd, and North Street, or what it's being called. The question is, has the study taken into account what happens when Oak Park Avenue gets backed up? That's my first question. Does it take into effect what will happen during the current events we have downtown, like the parades, the car nights, the block party? Well, did it take into account those things? Did the study also take into account that, as of right now, generally speaking, that people will cut through the neighborhood to get to Ridgeland from the other areas that are south, or I guess south of the tracks? Did it take that into account? Did it also take into account future events, when the park becomes active, how busy it'll be down here, people coming down to the area, how that's affected by the new residents there, and then that. Maybe the last question is too, along the same lines. There's other development coming down the pipe. The other condo going next to the South Street development, and the homes at the old Pandawood place. Is there a study done to take into effect how all that new density will affect this area? I'm not sure that this study has or not, this one. I think so those are my questions. As far as the comments about density, I'm sure you're tired of that word. I'm sure just because the more dense it is, the more traffic there is. And so, thank you for your time. Thank you.
The study didn't specifically look at some of the requests that the gentleman asked, but we did look at what the volumes are on the streets now and what the capacity of those streets are. And as I've indicated, we're at about 20%. There's significant capacity to accommodate some significant growth in the downtown area. As I indicated, there's going to be times when there's special events that these streets are going to be full and the downtown businesses are going to be doing well, but those are special events. You know, you're going to have a few more of them when you're in the downtown area, but in the same token, the volume of traffic to be generated by this development is going to be less than what you would find at a more remote area, and the fact that people can walk downtown, they can go to the restaurants, that will reduce the driving. They can walk to the train station. So there is that TOD effect that will help reduce the traffic on an everyday basis.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question for the gentleman. Did you take into account?
Sir, you need to be sworn in.
If you could sign in, and what's your name, sir?
Ma'am.
What's your first name?
John?
Hi, John. Do you swear the testimony that you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I just have a few questions. Did you take into account in your report, asking you?
supposed to ask them and then
Okay, fine enough.
You just put the question out there, you'll get it.
Okay. All right, I want to know, did he take into account the volume of traffic and parking that comes every summer from the park, Memorial Park, that has a tournament virtually every other day and leads to a tremendous amount of parking in that lot that is just south of 172nd, right across the street from where the Electronicos live? Did you take into account the amount of traffic that comes from the VFW and the car shows every summer, every Wednesday, and for their Queen of Hearts night and the various programs that they put on? They rent it for weddings and other kinds of public facilities. Were all those taken into account in in terms of your volume?
Okay.
I think that's a legitimate question. We're talking
Okay.
about traffic here, right?
Sure.
Well-
Yeah, we can have him address it. I mean, those are one-off situations, just like he explained before, that it happens. I mean,
No, wait a minute, no, I asked specifically about those kinds of things. The amount of traffic every
the
summer.
weekly things you want to know about.
Did
What
he
does
take that into
consideration?
account in formulating his report?
Okay.
Every
The
report
report,
has to have fact before the opinion can be made. I want to know what factors did he take into account? Are we just talking about this one little area here, or are we talking about our whole neighborhood? And I made this, my first address to it was we're going to be inundated with much traffic, not just from these buildings, but where are these people going to go that are already parking in that lot that's empty? And I want to know, did he take into account the volume of traffic that exists today from the park, from the VFW, from the various shows that the VFW puts on, a car show? Have you ever been to a car show?
Every
And-
week I go. Every
Excuse
week.
me?
I'm there every week.
Okay, do you ever see the parking in that lot?
I see it, I park in the train station and I walk. Yes.
Okay, but I'm talking about right across the street from the VFW, where this project is supposed to go.
Right.
That is virtually full, all right?
And it's in the traffic
Okay.
study.
All right.
And yes,
Is it all?
so yes.
He
Why don't we
put
ask him
all,
to
he
answer
took
the
all that?
question?
Okay, Michael, can you come up and answer his question?
All right, that's all I have.
Our study looked at existing volumes that were provided by the state that does daily traffic counts on the various roads, and that's what we based it on. I'm not sure when they did the counts, but they factor them up to get an average average annual daily traffic volume. So it's a representation of what the volumes are on those streets. Once again, these streets are operating well below their carrying capacity. There's significant capacity to accommodate some significant growth in here. The other factor you got to remember too, a lot of these special events, a lot of these other things occur on weekday evenings or on weekends when the traffic volumes are lower on the street system because it's not the commuter morning and evening peak period, so there's more capacity on the roadway system. Thank you again.
And I just want to, that in layman's terms is not an engineer. I know they're taking a certain percentage of traffic. They're not picking the 100% highest peak. Otherwise, we'd have 4-lane roads all over the place built for an hour. It's the reason why we also don't do parking maximums. If somebody's looking at, it's why we have a lot of parking lots everywhere. They looked at Black Friday and went, let's plan for that, but it ends up being, you plan for kind of that 85% or 75% or something along those lines. If you're planning for 100, you would overbuild, and we'd have, again, 4-lane roads all over the place. So they use those averages, they don't use the highest peaks. With that also being said, it didn't take into account other developments and others. That's not in this because that's not part of this developer's request. It's not part of these findings.
Okay.
So as part of this public hearing and the request, it did not include that because it's not part of it.
Understood. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Ma'am, your name?
Karen Stallmack.
Karen, do you swear that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth and whole truth? Nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Okay. And this is just on the parking study. We're only speaking on the parking study.
I can't hear you.
We're speaking on the parking study this evening. We're not, the traffic study.
Just the traffic study?
Just the traffic study.
Okay, when was the traffic study initiated?
Okay.
When was it revised? What was the population in Tinley Park when it originated? When this has been coming into plans for, say, 17 years, from what I understand? And the Legacy, Flex District, whatever all the other entities, I've heard specifically that we, as residents, should have been informed. And at the village board meeting in February, if you go back, there is evidentiary proof that we have not been informed of everything that's going on. We're back to the zoning. Why are we, as Tinley Park, making all these exceptions for this developer?
Okay, now that has nothing to do with the traffic study, ma'am.
I know that. Does that mean
We
that?
want to stay on the traffic study.
Okay,
That's the
I'll
issue
stay on
today.
the track. Can we answer, when was it started? When was it revised? And what were the population then as far as vehicles?
I believe your fourth question was about when the legacy code was implemented, and we covered that, 2011.
2016? I'm sorry.
2011,
2011.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay, that's when the first initial study,
No, that's when the legacy code was implemented.
okay. When was the first traffic study done?
If you step aside, he'll come and
He'll
answer the
come-
questions.
yeah. Michael will come up and answer the question.
And they can answer when they did their traffic study. For like the legacy code, they analyzed the traffic patterns when they did that. So there was public hearings when they implemented the different zoning districts in the legacy code then.
So back in 20, was
So
it-
there's been different studies based on what's been proposed throughout the years. This traffic study was just for this development.
Okay.
I don't have the date. I'm
just
looking
this
it up.
development.
just
So we're not talking Harmony Square anymore. We're not talking about the 112 plus people.
No, tonight, that's what we are discussing.
Okay, so is that been taken into consideration, another 112 in a what,
Yeah, the
6-block radius?
entirety of the
Yes.
traffic study
Was
is
based
focused
on
on the
that.
Harmony Square residential.
So I was told at the last meeting that I don't believe you were here, and that's irrelevant, but out of respect, I was told that the traffic study had originated when this was really originally developed
No.
and coming into fruition. Here, that's another thing. That's because it hasn't been transparent to us.
It is, ma'am. It's on the website. Everybody has an opportunity to open the website and see everything that's going on here.
Okay.
Everything is very transparent.
Well, so just to
You have to
clarify,
take the
your questions
initiative
are.
to look for it.
When
You have to go on the website and find it. It's right there. It's plain and simple.
Is it gonna tell me how many people more are going to be on those streets in that 6-block radius?
Yeah, so your
If you're
question is about the
eliminating
traffic
a whole
study.
street.
Your question is about the traffic study related to specifically Harmony Square and the residential developments attached.
Correct.
Your question is when that traffic study was started
Correct.
and what the population
Finding
of
was?
Tinley was? Okay. Is that something that Michael can answer?
Please.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you.
We were retained 4 or 5 weeks ago to conduct a study.
So it's relatively recent.
Yes.
Very recent.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so there weren't all these, the park district wasn't full at that time, 4 weeks ago.
No,
Season's over.
He previously testified that the data he uses is based on numbers that the state of Illinois collects.
Okay.
So Tinley Park has nothing to do with the numbers that he uses. It's an outside source.
Correct.
It's the state of Illinois. Those are the numbers that he used for the traffic data to make his assessment.
Okay.
And
So-
if I misspoke, if you could correct me.
For the purpose of this study, we used IDOT information, which are average annual daily traffic volumes, to look at what the volumes are on the roadway and what the capacity of those were. Thank you.
And sir, that's data that's utilized statewide to make this type of planning
Yeah,
decision?
it's on their website. It's.
So it's
anyone can see it.
uniform across the state in all villages, towns in Illinois?
The information is,
How it's
yes.
utilized.
The data,
How
the
it's
data
taken.
that's pulled
Yes,
by
Yes.
analysts is
Yes.
uniform across the state of Illinois?
No.
It's taken.
No, I'm sorry, the data set that's pulled into this analysis.
the volumes
is
we
from the
used is,
Illinois-
yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, does that satisfy your question?
Well, I just think that this data study is not relevant and unique to Tinley Park, and Tinley Park is very unique.
Okay, and again, I've lived here 5 years. I love Tinley Park. I chose it. I could have had any place to live, and I chose Tinley.
And we all chose it for the
Exactly.
same reason. Every one of us chose it for the same reason. But we don't want to see accidents, because this is a congested area already without the additional traffic from all the other events. Was he made aware that they're predicting over 200 events at the Harmony Square when there's 365 days in a year? Did you take that into consideration? No, because you know what? That's
Ma'am,
not part of
I'm
it.
sorry, ma'am, where, the 200 events, where's that come from?
From the Harmony Square, they're predicting with the ice rink and the
Throughout the year.
other events, over 200. So that's 200
It
additional
sounds
days.
fantastic.
We're
I
not
mean,
just saying.
Bring the people in.
Pardon me?
That's gonna help that's gonna thrive
Bring in
our.
a flash mob.
That's gonna thrive all of our businesses in the downtown area.
I'm looking forward to development. I can't even begin to tell you, but there were two issues that were brought up along with the night of the traffic study, and the other was density.
Okay.
People, children, pets, all these things are going to come into play, and it's going to cause a lot of chaos.
Ma'am, I mean this super neutrally. What's the density of your neighborhood?
That's not my position to know. That's
Okay.
your position to know.
Do you know the density of, again, aside from somebody bringing up 28, the number 28? Would you know the difference between a more dense neighborhood than what you live in?
Excuse me?
Do you know the density of your own neighborhood?
Why does she keep doing this?
I believe that that would be something that Dan would know.
Okay, but my point is.
I don't know.
Based on the traffic study that's happening, that we're discussing.
Right.
That seems like something you're concerned about, but
That's
Doesn't-
really unfair to put that to her. I'm sorry, that's really an unfair statement to put that to her.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fair.
Those houses were probably built with Tinley Park code, which was a 10% setback on each side of your property, 25 feet off of the curb, okay? And there's a per square requirement to build. Where I live, it's 6 per acre, and I live in a townhome subdivision.
Okay,
not 28
thank,
per acre.
thank you, ma'am. Do you have any more questions regarding the parking
That's
study?
really unfair.
Once again, it was brought up that we had two main issues. And fortunately or unfortunately, all they asked for was a traffic study.
And this
We brought
man-
up
That's
traffic
what
and
he
we
said.
brought up density.
That's what,
That's what they did.
the traffic study was the only thing on the agenda tonight.
That's it.
Have you
Okay,
read
so
the-
we'll
Somebody
do a
brought up
density
density.
study too,
That had nothing to do with this
There's
meeting.
nothing to do with density being requested today.
tonight.
There's nothing
Correct.
being requested related to density. So no, there is no density.
Do you
study.
want me to do a petition, a referendum? What do you want me to do
Ma'am.
in order to get that information? Thank you.
Have you read the traffic study?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I
You have-
did. It is 100, what was it? No, the last thing was 105 pages. And how many parcels of how much traffic within all those parcels that are to be changed and revised and variance? Yes, I have.
Okay, well.
And I live in
again,
that
I'm not being-
area.
I'm not being unpleasant.
I'm
It's a
very-
valid question,
You know
right? It's
what?
105
I have
pages.
the advantage. I have a driveway where I can turn around in the back by my garage and go out front ways.
Yeah.
That's all I ever want to do. There's buses, school buses. There's a school within 1 mile from my home. There are children around. You're putting a lot of traffic in that area, and the developer was so kind to adjust it because we had concerns. And what do we get? Parking spaces? Are those parking spaces, what standard are you giving?
Ma'am, is
Like a
safety not
Walgreens?
sufficiently addressed in the
Okay,
parking
well,
study?
then we're not done with the development. We're just doing the traffic study
Yeah,
tonight.
that's
But I
all we're
do
addressing
appreciate
tonight
you
legally.
hearing what I'm saying, and I would like you to all take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Okay. Staff, will you please present the standards?
I think you'll close the public hearing
Oh.
first before that, sorry.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Sepisi and seconded by Commissioner Gaskell. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, aye, Just to go over the all we do is kind of summarize these standards.
Oh, I'm sorry, just for the record, if she wants to state that the hearing is officially closed.
Oh,
that's
okay.
all. Thank you.
Okay, the hearing is officially closed. Go ahead and proceed
Go
with your
over the standards.
Thank you.
Yep, so the standards are here on the drafted standards are here on the screen. They've also been in the packet drafted for the last 3 meetings, so for well over a month. And there's the legacy code standards here, so these are specific to the legacy code and when you're varying that are special considerations related to the plan, the principles that are set forth there, and how these different requests relate to that, as well as, again, if they meet the architectural standards, and if it enhances economic development in the legacy code districts. Then we have standards for special use, and again, this request is solely for the residential amenities being on the first floor of the mixed-use building. So this isn't the overall development, it's just for those amenities to be on the first floor. without the special use, essentially the developer would have to do twice as much commercial on that first floor. Standards for a variation then are for those 9 variations that have been listed, and I can show again. We do loop those together, so that way, if any commissioner does want to vote on one separate from the other ones, they can always pull that out and vote on it separately and give it its own standards and findings of fact for that. And then there's the standards for site plan architectural approval. These are essentially close to guidelines of essentially how we want to see sites developed and how we kind of want to see architectural design considered. So that is what I have there for the summary of the standards and the findings of fact for those. And then we have the drafted motions. Yeah.
Okay. All right. May I have a motion regarding the text amendment?
I'll motion.
A second.
Haley,
You gotta
did
read
the
it.
motion?
Oh, my apologies.
And then we,
I would like to make a motion to recommend that the village board amend section 12.2.A.3 of the zoning ordinance legacy district, quote, downtown core regulation plan, to relocate a segment of the frontage designated as street level commercial required from a certain segment of North Street to a certain segment of the 67th Court extension as proposed in the October 19th, 2023 staff report.
Motion made by Commissioner West and seconded by Commissioner Hamilton. Jared, can you take a roll call, please?
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner West,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Acting Chair Gatto.
Yes. The motion is carried. Okay, motion number 2 for rezoning. May I have a motion?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend that the village board grant West Point Builders, Inc. on behalf of Tinley Park Main Street LLC a rezoning of the vacated portion of the 173rd Street right-of-way to the DC or downtown core zoning district, subject to the condition that the plat of vacation is reviewed and approved by the village attorney, village engineer, and the village board.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Sepisi and seconded by Commissioner West. Gerald, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner West,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Acting Chair Gatto.
Yes. Okay, the motion is carried. Can I have a motion for special use?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the village board grant a special use permit to allow accessory residential uses on the street level in a mixed-use building to the petitioner, West Point Builders, Inc., on behalf of Tinley Park Main Street LLC in the DC Downtown Core Zoning District, where street-level commercial is required in accordance with the plans submitted, and adopt the findings of fact as proposed in the October 19, 2023 staff report, subject to the 5 conditions as listed in the staff report.
Second?
Motion made by Commissioner Hamilton, seconded by Commissioner Sepisi. Gerald, can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner West,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Acting Chair Gatto.
Yes. The motion is carried. May I have a motion regarding the variations?
I'll make a motion to recommend that the village board grant 8 variations from the zoning ordinance as listed in the October 19th, 2023 staff report to the petitioner, West Point Builders Incorporated, on behalf of Tinley Park Main Street LLC, to permit the construction of a development consisting of townhomes and a mixed-use 5-story building at North Street and 67th Court in accordance with the plan submitted, and adopt the findings of fact as proposed in staff report, subject to the 5 conditions listed in the staff report.
Second?
Motion made by Commissioner West and seconded by Commissioner Sepisi. Gerald, can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner West,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Acting Chair Gatto.
Yes. The motion is carried. May I have a motion regarding the site plan and architectural approval?
I'd like to make a motion to grant the site plan architectural approval to the petitioner, West Point Builders, Inc., on behalf of the Tinley Park Main Street LLC for the development of 63 townhomes and a 5-story mixed-use building with commercial space and 63 units at North Street and 67th Court in accordance with the plans submitted, and adopt the findings of fact proposed in the September 7th, 2023 staff report, subject to the 8 conditions listed in the staff report. May I make a recommendation?
Sure.
It says 63 townhomes. I believe that's supposed to be 60.
Is it 60?
That is
correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, we didn't update,
Okay.
and we can go back to the last
Sounds great.
motion. We have a change for that one, too.
Can
I'm
I
sorry, we-
motion to commend Commissioner Sepisi for his eagle eyes?
Noted.
I'll second.
Okay,
not
all right.
Yeah, 60 townhomes.
Okay, 60 town. Okay. Second?
No, 60.
Okay.
Straighten up, you two.
Who is seconding?
I'll second.
Okay. So motion made by Commissioner Sepisi and seconded by Commissioner West. Gerald, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner West,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Acting Chair Gatto.
Yes. The motion is carried. May I have a motion regarding?
Can I just interrupt for a moment? Just for a point of clarification, motion, Commissioner West, I think, said 8 variations, and there should be 9.
Oh.
So if
That
you,
was a mistake on our part. It was a
Oh.
change from.
so if you want to amend your motion and re-vote on it,
Of course. I would like to amend my motion, which was motion number
4.
4, to say 9 instead of 8. Is that correct?
Yeah, variations, yes.
Variations.
Second.
Thank you.
And can you re-vote on that?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Another roll call, thank you.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Merrick, Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner West.
Yes.
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Acting Chair Gatto.
Yes.
Sorry about
Motion is
that.
carried. Okay. Now, can I have a motion number 6, may I have a motion regarding the plat of vacation and subdivision?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the final plat of vacation dated June 7, 2023, and the Harmony Square final plat of subdivision dated August 16, 2023, to the petitioner, West Point Builders, Inc., on behalf of Tinley Park Main Street LLC, subject to the following condition, that it is subject to final review and approval by the village engineer and village attorney.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Hamilton and seconded by Commissioner West. Gerald, can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes?
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell.
Yes.
Commissioner West,
Yes.
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Acting Chair Gatto.
Yes. The motion is carried.
And just for clarification, all of your motions appear to be based on the recommendations of, I believe it's the staff report from, is it October 19th?
Yes.
And I would advise that you would need to adopt findings of fact in support. So if someone would like to make a motion to adopt the staff's findings of fact from the staff report from October 19th,
I think that's in the motions.
Is it?
Already? Yeah, so
Okay.
it's.
If an
like-
additional one would be helpul, I'm happy to.
Yeah, if you want to do it for all of them, that's fine, but that is in like the motions that have the standards. So
Okay.
the special use, the rezoning,
Would you like me to?
yeah, sorry, the special use, the variations, but if you want to do one for all of it.
I'd like to make a motion
that'll-
to
that'll
adopt the
clarify.
findings of fact per the October 19th, 2023 staff report.
Second.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner West and seconded by Commissioner Sepisi. Can I have a roll call?
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes?
Commissioner Sepisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaskell,
Yes.
Commissioner West.
Yes.
Commissioner Gray,
Yes.
Acting Chair Gatto.
Yes, the motion is carried. This item will go to the village board on November 21st for the first reading. All right,
This is
item
just
number,
a recommending body here, so the board has the final decision.
okay. Okay. Item number 2 on the agenda is a workshop to consider recommending that the village board grant the Village of Tinley Park petitioner a map amendment to rezone the properties generally located south of 173rd Street, east of Oak Park Avenue, and north of North Street from the downtown core DC zoning district to the Civic CV zoning district. The purpose for this request is to provide proper zoning for the future Harmony Square Plaza development and all related structures on site. Site plan and final plat approval are also being considered at this meeting. Staff, please proceed with your presentation.
And really quickly, I'll just note, because obviously there's Plan Commission, you guys are aware, but there is new people in the audience watching this. A workshop is really just an overview of what the request is, so it's not question and answer, it's not a public hearing. That's coming after this at the next meeting.
Okay, so any-
If there is public questions about anything, they can absolutely reach out to staff over the next 2 weeks before the public hearing.
Okay.
It's really just an overview for the Plan Commission, and then it's generally if you guys have any big picture comments, things you'd like to really see clarified before the public hearing, or any additional information, so.
More a presentation than a
Yeah,
conversation.
It's really just the first time we kind of show something, much like we did with the hearing we just ended. The workshop's really just to get it out there and let you guys know what's happening.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Dan took the words out of my mouth, so,
Sorry.
yeah, so this is a workshop. So we're just gonna go over basically, little background on the site. This is for the, village-owned portion. This is actually for the Harmony Square Plaza and the structures and, yes.
I got locked out.
Oh, you got locked.
Sorry.
No problem.
Thank you. Just so I
Pause.
can see the
I know.
presentation.
Oh, you did too.
Anybody else get locked out? Yeah.
Oh, because you were on the presentation. Yeah, so this is more so for the Harmony Square Plaza, what the village has been coming from the proposal. Like I said, in the overall, what we're going to be bringing it forward for you is mostly the rezoning to Civic, and then also for site plan and architecture. Dan's going to go through the background and history in a second, but for the most part, the area is bound by North Street, 173rd, and Oak Park Avenue. The existing T-Hands is on the southwest portion of the property. There was a building on the northwest portion of the property that was torn down last week. The other properties are vacant at this moment. Dan, did you want to go into the history?
I'll just touch base on, this really, a plaza here goes back to at least the 2000 comprehensive plan. So pretty far back in the comprehensive plan that's sold, that we don't really utilize it that much anymore, but it shows you how far back plaza, an activated plaza in the downtown that can really be the center of the community has been envisioned out here. It's not always been in this location. It's kind of jumped around the downtown of exactly where it would be located. But really, even in 2003, I believe the Plan Commission had voted on the plaza that would have been more in the train station parking lot. And that was even ready for construction at a certain point there. So this has really been in the works since 2016, 2017. They've been really working on kind of the plan that's in front of you today. So just an overview of the kind of amount of time that's gone into this. We got 5 or 6 years of really planning and kind of thought that has gone into this. So we have the consultants here today that have really been working on this with staff, with the board, who gave direction for this overall plaza over time. So there's a lot of thought, a lot of years behind this. And I think everybody's really excited to see kind of what the downtown can be, and really this pretty cool public place in the center of downtown where the community can gather.
Excellent. So, like I said, here's the site here. And then I'm just going to briefly go over just kind of the requests that are going to come to you at the public hearing, and then go through some of the architectural features. Not everyone that was in the packet was a very detailed packet. If any of the people here want to present any more in detail, we will allow them to do so. In terms of zoning, currently the property zone for the downtown core, DC, which is a part of the legacy code. We've talked about that a lot. Actually, the previous thing, the downtown core is more for those high density uses and things like that. Obviously, the plan for a public plaza in the downtown has been well even before the legacy code was adopted. And this has presented itself as an excellent opportunity for a public use and a public space along with supported amenities. So the final plat is going to take, there's 7 parcels here on 1.6 acres of land. The final plat is still being worked on. It'll be ready for the public hearing, but it's mainly going to consolidate some of the parcels for the plaza, and then there'll be separate parcels, one for a structure on the southwest side and one on the south or northwest side of the property. So overall, the rezoning to civic, like I said, the civic district is meant for a variety of public uses and public buildings. We are requesting the rezone as the civic district, as it's publicly owned, is the more appropriate zoning for this. We're trying to make sure just clerically everything is in line. One, will be owning it and operating it. 2, the civic district offers the most flexibility, typically for unique projects. Like the train station is zoned civically. If you had to have standards that are typically for commercial buildings, it'd be way different. So this offers the opportunity to make sure we get full utilization of this entire site. So that is going to be the request for rezoning. Real quick, I'll go over the site plan before I go into the architecture. This is the plaza as a whole. There are, in orange there, you'll see 3 separate buildings. On the southwest side, that is going to be a rebuilt T-Hands. There will also be public restrooms attached to that building for the plaza, facing the plaza. On the northwest corner, that is for like the skate rental. There will be a stage facing the plaza, and that building will also be used for storage. Going back down to the T-Hands too, there will also be a rooftop deck on that one. And then on the northernmost portion, there is a separate building, VIP lounge, a place for rentals, for parties or other things, for different events. And things like that. And then on the east side, that is the proposed pavilion to kind of come underneath and act as a gateway from that side. On the west side, there's also a gateway in between the 2 buildings to welcome you into the plaza.
We're going to have any parking for this plaza, or is all the parking going to be in the train station?
For this plaza, I know we will be conducting, trying to figure out for those events, parking. That's more on like a village side.
I was just curious.
I'm pretty sure parking.
There's some,
after we go along.
there's some information in here, obviously for special events. Special events have already been happening out here.
Cartoon or commercial.
Can we have some order?
Yeah, so there's already special events happening out here, so really,
Yeah.
what we're gonna look at, and we'll have some information for you, but it's really about the plaza itself opening there. So on a day-to-day basis, how does the plaza operate? Traffic, parking information based on that. In terms of special events, again, those have already been happening. So the downtown event had, I believe, over 26,000 people over 2 days last year. So there is a plan there that's really how to manage it. A lot of it has to do with the 80th Avenue train station. So again, the village has done large special events down here, and that's kind of a separate plan from what the plaza is on a day-to-day basis. But we will have parking information.
I was just curious about like handicap parking, because over with the events are over in the 88th Avenue train station, the handicap parking is the south side of the tracks again, but you have to go up and over and across and under and everything else like this here to get to the actual event. Well,
That's
some
a
of
good
us
point.
can't make it that far.
Yeah, that's a good point. If there's on-street accessible parking or something, we can let you know about that and talk with the design team.
You know,
on
that's a
that.
big parking lot over there. Anyway, I'm getting off the track here. I don't want to get to the 80th Avenue
Yeah,
yet.
no, it's a good point for the plaza and everything going on here, especially if there's gonna be on-street parking, to make sure one of those is at least, or whatever's appropriate for the plaza, to make sure everybody can utilize the public plaza.
Where was it? Okay, so for the most part, like I said, I'm just really going to quickly go over the architecture of the three buildings, some of the overall conceptual design choices that were made by the team. The first one is the southwest building. This is the rebuilt Peahan. This is on that south corner looking towards the plaza. The T-Hands building is being reconstructed, but trying to keep the historical nature of that building and the more traditional style. And then on the left side there, you'll see a newer building over here. We're going to rotate around it, going counterclockwise. And this is kind of like an entrance off of Oak Park Avenue into the plaza. So another entrance here. There's an opportunity for a possible wall mural or something like that as a welcome into the area of the downtown. And as we keep rotating, I think you can see kind of on the top right side, that's kind of where the upper deck seating is going to be. While these renderings have very good detail in them, there will also be tables and chairs and things like that up there that'll kind of decorate that space as well. And then this is rotating all the way around back to Oak Park Avenue for that building. And then that's the rooftop deck there as well. Going to the northwest corner, this is the skate rental, the stage, and the storage building. So this has more of and I guess I should have said this about the other one too, more of the stone and brick look, a little more modern, but staying with that traditional, kind of very much like we talked about with the West Point property, having more of that brick and traditional look that kind of mimics more so the Oak Park Avenue train station. Coming around this building, it just gives a different view of the type of spaces that may be open in there. I do know that's top area will have a lookout point, security, things like that over there, and we're starting to wrap around now towards the stage. This is the stage area, which will be facing the plaza, which is kind of the whole point of that music, life amplified kind of brand of how the plaza is going to be utilized. And then finally going north, this is the VIP building I was talking about. So this will be like a rentable space, usable kind of a flex space for other things, planned with garden, planters there. This wall on the right side, actually, it shows it in the plans, but not on the rendering, but we'll actually have like ivy growing up the side of it as a living wall feature, and then rotates around. This one they chose more with the black brick to kind of give it the accent, and a lot of the brown with the horizontal, that's a composite wood. All like the kind of materials and showcased in the packet, a little more in detail if you want to see those. Then overall, these are more conceptual concepts of things that are called out on the plan. The pavilion on the bottom left is what I said, that entryway on the east side, and then we'll have these design features. These are not final permanent things, exactly what's going in there, but gives you a type of idea of the design elements that are going to be featured in the plaza. So for the most part, that is just an introduction into the plaza itself on a very, very quick overview. For the most part, for the public hearing, that final plat and the rezoning is really what we're going to be looking at with standards, and then as Plan Commission, you approve site plan and architecture, but as I said, the village as a whole is very excited about this project. As I said, 7 years just with this consultant alone trying to get this to where it will be something that would be great for everyone. So if Dan has anything else on it.
I was gonna say, we have the representatives here from Lakota who can give you a little overview, probably much better than even me, because they've been working on it from the beginning of kind of how we got to where we're at with the overall plaza. And then Tria is the village's architectural consultant who really worked more on the buildings, so they can give you maybe a little bit of an overview from their perspective of just kind of how we got to where we're at here. So we have them here as well. Yeah.
Is this an opportunity for us to ask questions?
If you want to ask them now, you can, or if it's got to do with the architecture and the site plan, you might want to let them go first, and maybe it answers your question.
Sure, well,
Go ahead
I'm
and-
speaking to something you said about the ivy-covered wall.
Yeah.
Is there any notation or something that can be added to offer a preference to native species?
Yeah.
Let me rephrase. May I make a recommendation? To at least have the input. Tinley has an environmental commission, correct?
Yes.
This might be a great opportunity for collaboration. Anyway, whatever's growing up that wall, it would be cool if it was native.
I will let Kevin from Lakota will probably
Kevin!
be your best friend.
Cool, thanks.
He's really kind of the.
This is just such a neat
wanted to
project.
say
I thought, what a great
mastermind behind the
opportunity
design,
to
but-
integrate native species.
Do I need to be sworn in?
No, this is just
I'm
a
good.
workshop,
All right.
so it's just.
Hi, Kevin Clark, Principal and Director of Design with Lakota Group. As Dan mentioned, and Jason, we've been working on this for about 7 years. We had a little pause in there where we were working out, what properties we're working with. I think the plan has evolved into a better place because of that. We're now dealing with the Oak Park frontage. To me, that's super important. You can see how we can create a commercial frontage, something, more activity that may happen along your Main Street, and also those glimpses into the plaza itself. As far as the growth of this thing has occurred, I mean, we began with staff, and we've had steering committee meetings along the way, defining this program. And the program came out of that brand, that Life Amplified brand. And to me, that speaks to music, but it speaks beyond that. It speaks to what is Tinley Park about, how we're bringing community together. It speaks to the generations and families and seniors that live here, inviting everybody here. And to me, that was where I look at something like the legacy plan, and being a designer and urban planner, I say, I know what they're trying to accomplish. They want to bring the people in and invite people here. So the beginning point of that was, well, what are we really trying to accomplish? We needed a place for the music to occur, right? The stage was a prominent feature, of course. We wanted to create an event lawn. We wanted this to be flexible, so things can happen year-round. It's not just about those summer months. We all love it in this Midwest. When it gets warm, we're all outside all the time, but we want to invite people here all the time. And somebody mentioned earlier 200-something days of events. It's more about programming. Some of those are passive programming where something's occurring that you can go enjoy. You can take a walk here and there may be a light show. That doesn't mean that there's a huge event occurring at that time. It's a plaza, it's a public place. So we want to make sure that there are those things kind of happening all the time. And I think with the Tian's building and that dining component, you'll have an active place where people are coming a lot, and that engages the plaza as well. And it's having like the water feature, for instance, which we didn't even mention, a little splash pad. There could be programs associated with that invites the families and kids on a daily basis. We can have simple markets, those quiet Sunday mornings to get coffee. This is the place for that to occur. What we didn't talk about was all the green. All those green spaces are landscape pockets. So yes, certainly we could talk about native species and as we get into the real details of the planting design, making sure that any trees we put here are going to be resilient and the landscape's going to be resilient and thrive. Because the last thing I want is to come out here and things aren't thriving. That's not what we're trying to accomplish. So to me, those things create the space. The space in the middle is flexible for a lot to happen. And it's been thought about and talked about a lot. It's still being developed, of course, and we welcome any thoughts. I guess I can invite the Jims up here from TRIA to talk about it, whomever is going to talk about it, if you want to talk about architecture, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Thanks, Kevin.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jim Gorski, so I'm one of the architects working on it, and you know, Kevin said it very well, right? So this is a really exciting project for us to be part of. We've been part of it as long as, almost as they have. The architecture, you know, is an integral part to the project, obviously. And, you know, I think for us, it's like, what are the drivers for architecture? What do you look at when you design? And certainly the plaza is one, right? The plaza is exciting, it's beautiful. We're gonna be reacting to that. Second thing is program, right? So we have a hospitality building in the southwest. We have a stage building and requirements for that at the northwest corner. We have the VIP building, so that's the second driver. The third is the legacy code, and how do we, you know, integrate these things into Oak Park Avenue and North Street, you know? And then, I forgot what the last one was, but last one was, oh, yeah, how could I forget this, was integrating T-hands, right? So we're reconstructing T-hands as part of the project too. So like all those things come together, you kind of put them in a mixing pot and think very hard at how that can work. And this is kind of where we're at now. We've gone through a series of presentations with the Tinley Park team to get where we're at. And I think we're all feeling like we're in a really good spot to take it to you all. And welcome any questions or comments you have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think overall here, there's been, again, just years of input and design behind this. And as stuff has changed a little bit, as properties weren't available, but really a lot of thought between all of these buildings, how they function with the plaza, how we really create something that's gonna really live out here for the next 100, the next 200 years, and really be a cool spot for the community to gather. So even the internal side of it, which you guys don't get into, I've had to sit through a lot of those meetings, and they've really thought about where the best doors are, where the entrances are, how, if you have fans, how they load and unload. So there's been a lot of those thoughts of kind of how you function in this space and how it's going to be utilized, and to make sure those thoughts are done in it, so that way we don't build this and then we have to go backwards and go, oh shoot, we really forgot about this. There's been a lot of thought here to make sure we do it right the first time, and this is really something Tinley Park as a whole community can be proud of, to say we have this really cool space that our entire community can come assemble in. So, that's kind of all I have, but we'll throw it back to the commission if you guys have any comments,
I have
concerns,
two questions.
I'm sure I'll.
That center, like the football shape, that is actual grass.
Synthetic turf.
Fake.
Synthetic turf.
It's synthetic turf,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Okay, because I'm thinking like in town Chicago, the Millennium Park is actual grass, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
In that location, yes, but for instance, like at Gallagher Way at Wrigley Field, which is often used, that's synthetic. And those are some of the things that we look at because we know that the usage, when you have that many people out there, we just didn't want to have those issues where if it rained a ton and then there was a concert, what are you doing the next day, right?
Is it permeable, right?
It is permeable, yes.
So it is still permeable?
Yes.
Yeah.
For water, so it's not like a concrete pad under it?
Right.
But it is.
And then they'll have drainage.
Yes, there are drain pipes underneath that. It all comes into a stone base underneath it, yep.
Where does the skating take place?
On that, so
Oh,
we
on top of
create,
the
yeah, so
football
we'll put that on the surface, and that'll be in the middle. We were literally just going through that today at our meeting, like how all of that plays out, because if you've ever been to temporary skating, you know you gotta have rubber mats, and how are people going from their skate, where are they changing their skates when they get from the rental? Are there warming tents? So those are the things that we've been like working out to make sure that we've got it figured, and no, it'll be, we'll be figuring some of that out as it happens.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions?
I don't know if you want to throw it to Garrett so we don't forget about him.
I do.
Go ahead,
There you
Garrett.
go.
Thanks, Commissioner Gatto. Yeah, so, okay, well, I know this is a workshop. I am for consolidating the properties. I think that makes sense. I think the overall layout looks good, right? The functionality of it, we got the 3 buildings, and I love the stage area going out to that synthetic field. I do have some concerns. I guess I have a question for Jim Gorski of TRIA, if he could approach the lectern.
You've been summoned.
I'm ready. Hi, Garrett.
Go ahead, Garrett.
And speak into the mic, I can barely hear as it is.
Okay.
We can move the.
I
we
can
move
go,
the
I could go anywhere you want if there's a better spot.
So Jim, you mentioned, okay, the legacy code, and I know it's gonna go transfer from the legacy code to the civic code, where that's the intent, and I understand the intent behind that. What specifically of this development points towards the legacy code for clarification?
Sure. I mean, I think if we want to primarily talk, it's probably Oak Park Avenue, but certainly North Street as well. But, you know, the big thing I think is that there's a general language in the code about architectural modulation in the facade, so that if you're doing a bigger development or a bigger building like this could be, it's not one big blank wall, you articulate it. There's reference to kind of a built over time aspect to the developments going in the legacy area. And then, and sort of a just diversity, high level of detailing. And, you know, I will tell you, we definitely read the code and applied it, our interpretation of it, to the project. And again, as well as factoring in all these other drivers. So, for example, on Oak Park Avenue, I don't know if you have, there's a 3D kind of image that's more of Oak Park, but I can still speak to it. We broke up the facade, so you have the T-Hands west facade, and then we purpose it, and you can see it in the plan, how we set back the next part of the building. That's actually on North Street, this one. Yeah, this is close, but that second level, if you will, is a 2-story entry into the hospitality building, which has the roof terrace. That element is proportioned and set back and modulated and shares siding language that is consistent with T-Hands and buildings right across the street. So you have that modulation, and it almost acts like its own building. And then the next one, which then, you know, turns the corner and becomes part of the plaza, so it has a little bit more of a plaza feel, is kind of we'll call it a classic storefront, 1-story storefront building that's masonry, stone, and glass detailing with a little bit of the wood accent there as well, where a sign band would be. So there's that kind of level of development in that part of the building as well. So that's kind of our interpretation of that. Welcome to hear comments and can react to that accordingly.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. You know, I looked at I think the overall layout looks fine. I understand what you mean on the modulation, but I think the buildings themselves, with the exception of maybe the T-Hands architecture, I don't think they follow the legacy code. The legacy code does, you know, and you mentioned it, it's supposed to ensure that like new development respects the historical scale of the downtown, and by doing that, one of the intents is to create architectural standards that it looks like it organically was built over time. Like that building popped up. But you have 3 buildings where I know you have an ivy wall or proposed, and there's painting on one side, but generally speaking, those 3 buildings, their architecture was very, very much the same. And I know it's being transferred to the Civic, so I'm not exactly sure we have 1 foot in trying to adhere or, you know, apply the legacy code, but we're going to move to the Civic code or Civic designation. And so I'm not exactly, but you got a T-Hands that looks historic, like is meant through the legacy code, right? That's what it's that definitely, that T-Hands meets the intent. If I go through the legacy code, there's a process. It's spelled out in the code. If you have a new development, redevelopment, whatnot, the conformance, you have precise conformance, which means you meet everything. This is not one of those. Moderate conformance, like the intent, T-hands probably falls in that range, and then non-conformance. And I would think the site plan for those 3 buildings, which look the same, like the 3 of them, for lack of a better term, there's no wow factor. There's nothing that differentiates each building from the next. Even if you do have an ivy, on one of them, and you have a painting on the other, I don't think it looks much different from the Tinley Park roller rink down the road in terms of the brown colors. So I think, I'm not sure, again, I would have 1 foot in for the legacy code and 1 foot for the civic. There needs to be clarification from staff on that, but I would say, just go back to the legacy code, anybody on the commission, read it, and I can even give you pages, just go to page 1, page 2 on the intent. And if you want to see what the architecture is, go to page 57 for the downtown core. Again, we're moving from that to the civic, so I'm not exactly sure, what identity we're supposed to have. But I would say this, and I think Dan or somebody from staff mentioned, this is an important thing. This is the downtown area. We want this to be a hub of many, that enriches the community for many years to come. So let's do it right. Let's do it right the first time. Again, I don't see any issues with the layout or anything like that. From my standpoint, as a professional engineer, I think it looks functionally correct. But just from, this is going to be owned by the village, operated by the village, and if we want to be consistent, we should adhere to our own rules that we put forth, right? So, but again, it's kind of gray because are we doing the legacy code or are we actually jumping into the civic or both, the civic zoning, and so, but I would say that if you put that there, as the rendering show, for at least my personal preference, with the exception of the T-hands, that I think looks great, and I understand you got some modulation stuff, I wouldn't, necessarily fool with that, but I just think from the facade standpoint, it could be varied up in the spirit or the intent of keeping the historic district, that downtown looking like it did kind of organically come, so that when we swing the bat, we hit a grand slam on the first try, right? Not a triple we try to steal home. So,
Yeah.
But with that said, if you have any comments, and I apologize for the long rant. I'm on phone, so I kind of got to get it out. And whatever you want to address, Jim, please address.
Good point, Garrett.
Yeah, good parent. I agree, Garrett.
Just really
yeah.
quick to note on the zoning, because the civic zoning is still part of the legacy district, so
Okay.
I think Garrett probably knows that, but it does loosen up some of, basically what goes out of there are just like the setback standards, the height standards, and that's applied to like the train station, Central Middle School, public facilities that really go through a board approval process anyways, so there is some kind of general public need for that, and it's really not going to follow your typical built environment standard. So it still does, though, it's still in the legacy code, so I believe what he's referring to a lot in that is there's some architectural guidelines that are in there. They aren't necessarily code requirements, but there are guidelines in there to kind of say, even if you're doing an addition, there's separate guidelines in there for that just kind of say, here's generally what we're looking at in terms of how the buildings should lay out.
And Dan?
Go ahead.
Dan, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so even down to the windows, right? I believe there's a thing where there are big bay windows but on top, they're supposed to be smaller. I see some big windows at the top. And then we're doing something different, but again, this is our project. We should probably adhere to the rules that we set forth as a village, right? So, that's my concern.
And, respectfully, Garrett, I mean, we are trying to balance the legacy code as part of a larger kind of development package too, and program. So, we could start going in piece by piece. I don't know if this is the time, but, there is, again, a general planning and driver that is looking at these buildings And when you talk about history and architecture, you know, a certain amount of building in historic districts has to do with scale, proportion, and things of that nature, and not necessarily, you know, putting a corbelled cornice on and brackets and things like that. And again, I mean that with no disrespect. What I'm just trying to say is that, you know, we're factoring in how this fits into that legacy district, as well as the plaza, and what's going into that as well, and the program. We got some untraditional programs. So like the second stage building is really tall, and we're balancing what that is programmatically with the language of the architecture as well.
I think what Garrett was saying, though, is those buildings he was talking about doesn't fit in the legacy code.
Yeah.
That's what he's concerned about.
No, I respect his opinion, for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think something needs to be done about it rather than just respecting the opinion. I think his opinion should be taken into consideration.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, yes.
Okay.
I will acknowledge that.
And if there's any specific examples or ideas you have, like, we will take those too. So if it's, like Garrett's calling out the windows and things like that, that's helpful for us to be able to look at between now and the public hearing, so.
I don't know, I particularly don't care for the difference between the materials that are used on the T-Hands building and the building next door, or the other buildings. I feel like they should all kind of work together, and to me, none of this goes together. I don't know. It looks modern
Well, again,
to
that's
something
what Garrett was
historical.
saying.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first thing I noticed when I seen the plans. So, I don't know if that's changing the brick color to be similar to what the T-Hands is at a lighter, and making the windows smaller in the other building. But I feel like it doesn't flow very well to me.
Could you go to the other buildings?
Yeah, can you go to the other?
But you feel like the windows between the two
No,
sides?
I
don't-
just feel like this looks modern and the other looks historical, and so I feel like they clash, they don't blend well.
Even a roof line would make a difference.
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
that's a
we're talking
straight,
flat roofs
yeah, we're
here.
talking straight.
I mean, I
straight
get that
lines.
on the part where it's
That's
seating
modern.
above the T-hands,
Right.
you know, but all the rest of them, you know, give them a little bit of something on the roof. I mean, you know,
Yeah, I just feel like it's just very modern looking.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of angle.
No,
I guess what you're seeing as clashing, I'm seeing as variety. You know,
Yeah.
right? Like, it can the more modern elements be isolated to one side, and then the other side more
yeah,
closely reflect the historical
Yeah.
nature of the corner
yeah,
lot? Yeah. that
Yeah.
would be
but the
whole
modern,
thing.
the modern design doesn't
doesn't fit in the
doesn't
legacy.
fit in the legacy code.
That's not-
That's what we have to consider,
That's
the
not-
legacy
No,
code.
that's fair. No, that's fair.
And it really
That's
doesn't
fine.
fit downtown.
No, really.
But also, it's off, I guess if that was isolated off Oak Park. Yeah, I know.
I speak on behalf of the staff that's worked with the architects.
Yeah.
Here, please.
Sorry, for those of you that don't know me, my name's John Urbanski. I'm the Public Works Director. Myself and a lot of the other staff members have worked with this team on the design that we have in front of us. Now, obviously, we didn't take the first thing that they proposed to us. There's been a lot of changes. Some of the recommendations that were given to us were based on, as you said, following the tan across the facade. We discussed this amongst the group. It seemed to just be dull at that point. Looking at the legacy code, there's statements as built-in, other items that we looked at the bullet points through the legacy code, and it's a subjective statement, built in place. What does that mean? Does it mean keep everything looking like it's from the 1800s, keep everything looking like there's no change in time across the build? And, we agreed. Everybody knows T-Hands is a monument of the corner of that intersection. So we decided, let's keep that looking exactly how it is. Everybody that knows downtown Tinley Park knows what T-Hands looks like. Now, granted, we're rebuilding it to meet current code and ordinance, We've done some other tweaks to it that, help meet the code, done some things that are ADA accessible where the original building wasn't. So there's things that, unless you're really intimate with the building, you won't even notice those changes. But as we went along that facade, whether it be Oak Park Avenue or North Street, we started discussing how can we bring the surrounding buildings into what we're trying to do here. Even though the windows on the, I guess that would be the east end above the Tinley Park sign, look very large, that's a conference or party room. So having larger buildings or windows brings light into that room. And we're like, how can we do that to make it look good? So we started looking at some of the old architecture on the area. The old Bremen Cash Store, Boston Blackies, an industrial building. They had large arched open windows like that. So right next to a train station, we had old warehouse buildings that looked like that. That looks like an old warehouse building, trying to bring history into that design. Now, again, going across the Oak Park Avenue facade, we chose to have them add that gray break wall into there, again, showing the, built-in-place kind of add on there, and then have them recess that a little bit, have them bring out the next, area. You can ask the architect, they had a whole wall of glass there. We shot that down right away. We're like, this looks way too modern, way too, urban. We want something looking a little bit more like what you're seeing around the area. To the respect of your flat roof comment, we looked at some of the other areas like the Springford Hall. Some of the other newer buildings that have been built are flat roof. Now, if you got concerns about maybe adding a cornice or some type of mantle on the top of those roofs, those are things we can discuss and add to the layout of it to kind of bolden it up a little bit from what it's there.
Flatness away,
Yeah,
that's really all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
and to acknowledge the history of Tinley as a community. Like you're saying, like it was formerly a manufacturing.
And some of those points are brought up in the legacy code.
Yeah.
I noticed them. Now, if you look close enough, you can see it a little bit better on the east building above the Tinley Park and the large windows. You can see a small mantle put up there. So it's not as bold as some of the other buildings we have downtown, but it has been incorporated into that building. Some of the limestone or sandstone looks below the storefront windows, we had them add that. We had them add other features that we're noticing a lot in other buildings downtown. So, it does look modern. We're not going to deny that. But we also agreed, we're building into 2023 right now. This is something that we're trying to blend, something that's 100+ years old, into something that's going to look new. So it's going to look like it's a broken, design across the front of it. But again, the legacy code calls for built in place. So that's kind of, yes, we are building it as one building, but we're trying, the architect is trying to design it to look like it is built at separate times of,
But you're just talking about the T-Hands building now. Yeah, well, we're talking about the other ones.
No, that's what I'm talking about, is if you go further north from Tians, that's why there's separation and there's, it moves forward and backwards across the Tians building. Now, if you're talking about the stage building, again, we tried following a little bit more as it moves into that modern era as you go north from Tians, and that's where we got from here. Again, design changes like the room up top where it has that box out. Originally, we were looking at just a brown facade. We're like, everything's starting to blend. Everything's too many dark brown hues, too much. We're just going to look like one big brown box.
Well,
Now, again, if we wanted,
be different, that's not a big deal. I'm just talking about the shapes and the, just the overall appearance.
so again, if there's little tweaks that, if we can propose this as what we have right now, and if there's little tweaks we can add to it, that's kind of where we want to be at with this discussion. To try to start all over with a whole new facade, that's really going to be difficult to try to.
I don't think we're looking at that. We're just looking at some things to make it
Details to it.
make it new.
Canopies, the windows.
Make it new,
and
but still
hearing,
keep it
things
in the
like that.
historic genre.
Well, we'll try to see what we can do, because again, at some point you're Frankensteining the design, right? Because there is a modern look, and if you try to throw some cornices in spots where they may not belong, but we can definitely work with the architect on trying to, get what I understand exactly what you're asking for, and try to get, again, bring some more of the things that are pointed out in the legacy code into what we're looking at here.
John, I might get killed for saying this, but those windows on the other building on the south, I like them.
The large buildings, thank you.
I like them too.
Yeah, I when I saw them at first, they kind of stuck out, and then we realized that they reflected some of the industrial style or warehouse buildings that would be down.
We're back to these right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I like. That I like.
That's a room. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you're gonna want light to come into that.
I feel like they're
Yeah.
modern while
Yeah.
acknowledging the historical context.
Yeah, but maybe just something a little bit more on top of that roof line.
Maybe.
Well, not this one so much, because there's a deck up above that.
I'm sorry, what was that?
That's not the deck above it, is it?
The deck, as you go the furthest north building, that is the deck.
is the lower one.
It's the lower one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh.
So I'm thinking maybe if there's something up here that we could do to kind of help step that down, because I don't think you're gonna get a
A
cornice
little
or
more
anything.
gradually.
And you're gonna actually have seats and stuff happening up here that I think will,
Gonna create more
Act-
height than we realize.
yeah, in a 2D rendering like this
Yeah.
doesn't maybe show as much, but I think maybe if there's
Bring the
something.
model to the next meeting.
We have to start getting the foam board out.
There you go.
Right.
You have a SketchUp, I need more SketchUp views. Is there
That's
more
all that was.
views?
Was there any other questions for me while I'm still here?
Dan, it's Garrett. Can I say something?
Go ahead. Go ahead,
Yep.
Garrett.
Thanks, Commissioner Gatto. John, I appreciate you giving the insight to the process. I too agree that, you know, it isn't enviable. You kind of got to balance the old and the new. Understood that. I understand it. The thing is, will it pass the eye test with the community, right? Like, Soldier Field blends the old with the new.
That's
But does it pass the eye test?
That's an eyesore.
I promise, we're not putting a toilet inside of a stadium.
You know, those, bits and pieces together, but that the end result satisfying. And I agree, I don't think you should go back to the drawing board, but stuff with color or cornices or something to alleviate just or differentiate the facade a little bit. And I've seen successful old plus new projects. Notre Dame Stadium, if you go in there, they have the old stadium and the new, and they did a fantastic job. It's very hard to do, and you need a little bit of creative thinking on some of it, but with that said, I appreciate the job you're doing. I understand it's not, you know, a simple solution like starting with a brand new fresh site, but I do think it's worth it, especially it being the hub, to get it, you know, to get it right, whether it's a few tweaks here and there, so it doesn't look like a broken design. It doesn't look like a Frankenstein's monster. So that's all I have to say.
I think one of the examples that was used is really more like Gallagher Way and Wrigley, where you really have this old historic building.
Yeah.
And if you look at the hotels across the street in the Gallagher Way area, that is a modern design that they're kind of blending with the old school Wrigley. In general, I guess is because architecture is always subjective, right? But I think that one's generally been seen as a win and something that blended well. So that was actually one of the things I know our team was looking at, is that project to go, how did they do that? Because it is a tough thing, and it's a tough thing to even translate that from plans to real life. And how does that look? So, and how does that feel as they're walking past this? So.
I think it's a hell of a start.
Well, definitely heard you guys, so we'll
Anyone
talk
else
about
have
it.
any comments? No? Okay. If there's no further comments or questions, we can end the workshop discussion. The item is scheduled for a public hearing at the November 16th Planning Commission meeting.
Angela, do you need a motion?
Did you need something?
Doesn't need a motion.
We don't need a motion to close.
No,
right?
no,
We're good?
it's,
Okay. Staff, do you have anything for the good of the order?
for good of the order, what we have, the pizza's moving along. We're hoping the walls on that, I know I've probably said it before, but I think the walls are supposed to be going vertical here shortly. The foundation's almost complete. I don't think it's fully there, but it'll be done, this winter, so that way the walls can go up. They're still aiming for a spring opening on Pete's Fresh Market. I know we have plans in also for the Brixmore Plaza across the street for their phase 2. And their anchor tenant of Ross Dress for Less has plans in too that'll be going in there along, they have plans for other tenants, but they're already working on their interior build out. So that plaza's really come a long way, so excited to see Phase 2 is really the whole rest of the plaza. So for a very large portion of Harlem Avenue, when you combine that with Pete's, even what happened with Floor and Decor, Hobby Lobby, Smoothie King, there's really been a lot of progress in that area. So I'm excited to see the development continue there. The Magnuson Apartments, which is something that had come before here a number of times, that's under construction and continuing on. They've been doing underground work to get all the utilities in place, as well as working on the clubhouse area and two of the structures. So 3 of the 5 permits total are out for that, and we have 2 more of the buildings that they'll be coming in for shortly. But they're really progressing on the clubhouse and 2 of those apartment buildings. Do we have any other project updates? Oh, yeah. We'll have a new commissioner appointed. It's actually here, but the next board meeting, the agenda has a new commissioner appointed to replace Commissioner Truxell, who had resigned. So we're excited to fill that spot pretty quickly. That's all. I think that's all we got.
What about Commissioner Bettenhausen? Are we replacing him?
We'll be,
Oh.
yeah, that was Kayla Watt.
Okay, okay,
Coming
okay.
back. So, yeah,
I must have slept that meeting.
yeah, as soon as the next one,
I'll
we'll
do
have
my
all
best.
9 members back. So.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Okay.
Second.
Okay. Made by Commissioner Sepisi and seconded by Commissioner Gaskell, and this meeting is adjourned at 9:18.